speaking of next season, I wanted to talk about what Liverpool need to do to remain competitive, as you've said there. It's really difficult to predict what the Liverpool team will look like because, as we've talked about, we don't know who's going to sign, we don't know who's going to leave. But in your opinion, what do you think is the minimum amount of work that Liverpool need to do to actually compete for the Premier League title? Not necessarily win it, but just at least stay competitive in the race with Arsenal and Man City.
I think the absolute minimum really for me would be to sign a left back and sign a centre forward. I think those are the two areas you could get instant improvement in the team. I mean, Andy Robertson, by the way, I don't want to go in too harshly on him. I think some of the talk about his form this season has been way over the top. I think he'd be a very, very decent option next season as well, and should play a lot of games because he's a very good player. But it is clearly, he's not quite at his peak level, so you can get improvement there, and that's an obvious area. Liverpool are going to look to get it. And then centre forward, we've spoken time and time again about Darwin Núñez and Diogo Jota and their struggles for different reasons. So again, that's an area you can get improvement. I think everything else will kind of be window dressing in terms of it'll be Joe Gomez out. Can you get a third choice centre half in who's similar level? Wataru Endo leaves. Can you get a midfielder who's similar level to that? But I think that the key thing to do, they for me are the two priority positions that Liverpool should be looking at, even though I expect they'll do more. But for me, the most important thing, if Liverpool want to challenge again, is to minimise the turnover, really. The ideal situation is that you come to the first game of next season and maybe one of those two signings, maybe one of the 5 signings you make is starting the game. In an ideal situation, you tie down all 3 to contracts. Your front 3 is Salah, Gakpo, centre forward you sign. Your midfield is Szoboszlai, McAllister, Gravenberch. You'll be back 4 is Van Dijk. It's got Trent in it. It's got maybe even Robertson starts the first game, or your left back signing Canate and Alisson is in goal. And that for me, Liverpool. This is why there hasn't been the churn that's always been predicted over various summers in recent years. Is because Liverpool know that is a one-way ticket to taking a step backwards. The ideal thing is to just make small tweaks to the team. So as I say, those first 10 games of the Premier League season, you're not showing too many changes. You've only got 1 or 2 new players in. That'll give you a real basis, I think, to start the season strongly. And then, you can pick it up from there and continue your challenge with hopefully a stronger squad and a stronger setup. But continuity is absolutely massive, I think, for challenging.
Well, I can't say I disagree, but I did want to pick up on something you said there, which you related. You were talking about Wataru Endo. Do you think that if Liverpool were to keep the same core midfield group without necessarily making an addition, say we kept Endo around as the 5th option, do you think that midfield group would still be able to have Liverpool competing for the title, even if no additions were made?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I personally would like to see someone added because I think the manager's ridden this 3 and 4, when you include Curtis Jones, a little bit too hard this season. I think he's learned a little bit about that. It could be, by the way, that Gravenberch assumes the ability to have these mammoth seasons. By the way, this is going to be his longest season for minutes. I think he's 70 odd minutes away from matching his record he's had. And there's still 9 games to go, and the intensity's up. And also, Liverpool could have had Champions League games on top of that. And he could get the ability to get through these seasons in the way that Van Dijk does, the way Mo Salah has done. Trent Alexander-Arnold's always up there for minutes played. So he might be better in that regard next season. But ideally, the manager did want to sign a central midfielder last summer. I imagine that hasn't changed. I think Endo will leave to open up some space there because he wants to play more often. I wouldn't be against a midfield signing who he truly trusts just to make that rotation a little bit wider. So I would kind of like to see that. But I do think, they could challenge for the Premier League title if there were no changes there, because I think this trio plus Jones plus Endo plus Harvey Elliott chipping in from time to time has proven itself good enough to win the Premier League. But obviously the idea is to do more than that, isn't it? It's to and to defend it, you want to look to improve, and also in the Champions League they want to go a bit further as well, and maybe another option there who can freshen the legs, who can help things out in that regard over the course of a season would be helpful. But I do think they could probably challenge with the current options. I just don't think that that's the way it's going to go. I think there will be change there, and I would welcome it as well.